This video describes the value of adding the ideas of U-theory to working with couples. But before we can discuss U-theory, we need to let you know our basic premises about working with couples. Our experience is limited entirely to working with couples who freely choose to marry and who can also, with some qualifications, choose to get divorced if the relationship does not work out. We start from the position that you cannot be truly married, as we think of it, unless you are free to divorce, meaning that at the deepest level, marriage is an emotional choice we must make every day. And what marriage entails is basically the commitment to love, honor, and negotiate, as Betty Carter put it. This requires being generous to your partner and treating him or her with an open heart and an open mind, without jealousy, possessiveness, separation anxiety, relating with respect, good listening, and self-disclosure, and negotiating your differences without avoidance or attempts to diminish your partner through intrusiveness, or conveying that you know your partner's thoughts and feelings and experiences better than he or she does. But marriage also always fits into the larger context of our other relationships as we move through life, our extended family, friends, work systems, and communities of religious, neighborhood, and common interest affiliation. Thus, divorce would involve realizing that children and co-parenting are forever, that choosing to leave your spouse depends on whether the divorce would create more problems than it would solve in your loneliness, suffering, boredom, unhappiness, your sex life, your children's suffering, your work and financial status, your home location and comfort, your neighborhood and religious community relationships and status, your relationship with your in-laws and extended family, and your friendship network. We often teach couples to set practical guidelines related to differentiation for deciding whether to stay married. The basic principle goes like this. For 9 months, behave according to your own ideals of spousal behavior, no matter how your partner behaves. And at the same time, make sure your relationships are in good shape with your children, your siblings, your parents, your friends, and your work connections. If at the end of 9 months your spouse is not responding to you, it's probably time to move on. It is only once spouses have accepted that the only person you can change is yourself, not the other, and have begun to consider what such personal change would entail, that you can begin to tell couples about U-theory and see if they are willing to engage in the process of change that can lead to co-evolving an expanded vision of the future with their spouse. Theory U was developed by Otto Scharmer and others working in the organizational change field to help groups solve problems and become more creative. We believe these ideas have profound implications also for couples therapy. Theory U pertains to our finding our pathway to who we are and how to evolve our relationships as we move into the future. Change requires first learning about our blind spots, those places where our attention and intention get stuck. Scharmer believes we face the same problems across all system levels, and when we get stuck, the challenges we face require us to become more aware of ourselves as part of the system and to change the inner place from which we operate, rather than trying to fix something about the other person or other parts of the system. In this view, our very blind spots about the structure and sources of our attention can become the exact starting points for change. This journey seems to us a valuable way to help couples whose relationships have become stuck. We believe these ideas have profound implications for therapy. They look at everything from a systemic view, which seeks to understand how everything in our world is connected. When couples are having problems, They have a tendency to get stuck in how they respond to each other, typically viewing the other as the cause of their distress, or at times blaming themselves without really thinking things through. They tend to get stuck in how they're thinking about the situation, becoming repetitive in what they say and do in their relationships, losing their ability to think creatively about their situation. To bring about major change in any system, or even to think creatively about our options, we typically need to shift our understanding of our own part in the system. Such change begins with expanding our typical way of responding to the information from our environment, from what Sharma calls downloading. For Sharma, downloading is the typical thinking and behavior most of us generally engage in to solve problems in our lives. When we are downloading, we tend to take in new information as same old, same old. We try to fit anything new into the ways we're already inclined to think and respond. Naturally, this makes any real change difficult. Characterizations of downloading include thinking that is closed-minded, cynical, abusive, operating in an us versus them mode. It is linear, fear-based, manipulative, disconnected, deaf to new ideas, destructive, judgmental, blaming, and focused on competitive issues of who's ahead. You can probably recognize these patterns of thinking as characteristic of many couples in trouble. Spouses often hold on to hurts, measure their own behavior by what the other does rather than by their own values, and easily fall into judgmental blaming, cynical and destructive patterns of attack, defense, placating, or otherwise shutting down altogether. They tend to lose their hold on values of kindness, respect, generosity, and creativity, becoming caught in their wars of blame, shame, and who did more for whom. In our experience, working on couples' communication without helping them consider deeply who they really are seems mostly a waste of time. This is where U theory can come in, offering a very handy way of conveying the process that seems most likely to potentiate truly creative change in systemic relationships. Real change begins with the process of suspending judgment and listening, and more listening. We must let go of our traditional ways of thinking, our fears and cynicism, to really experience emerging possibilities. They're hard to see except with new eyes and ears. As we work at experiencing ourselves as part of the change process, we begin to be able to let new visions and connections into our consciousness. And eventually, we become able to evolve new collaborations and changes in the systemic possibilities of our situation. The process of going into the U to develop perspectives that can potentiate change begins with observing with fresh eyes and listening with fresh ears and beginning to identify your blind spots that can block your experience of the world around you. Proceeding down the U requires real work at suspending your usual judgments, becoming a great observer and an intense listener, opening your heart to broader understanding of the systems of which you are a part, and working hard to take your blinders off and recognize your reactivity that blocks your openness to experience. This involves letting go of preconceived notions and judgments, especially of preconceived notions of what is possible in the future. The bottom of the U is a place of presence or mindfulness, being as fully conscious as possible of where you are and having your blinders off. It is a state of open heart, open mind, and open will, allowing your deepest inner knowledge to emerge. As you start up the other side of the U, you come to the most exciting phase of letting come. That is, of letting yourself really sense emerging potential and possibilities. Proceeding up the U, you can begin to imagine a vision of the future, connecting with possibilities that want to emerge. As you continue to come up, you can begin co-creating visions of the future. Finally, as you emerge from the you, you are operating from your deepest sources of knowing and appreciating that all creation is co-creation, based on our greatest hopes and possibilities, requiring redesign of our lives and relationships as we evolve. What is so handy about the basic framework of you theory is that it can be conveyed in a simple diagram, yet it is profound in its allusion to our deepest human potential and striving for connection and creativity. So it can help spouses think and imagine beyond their petty fights and hurts to who they are trying to be. They can refocus their efforts on imagining the change they want to have happen in their relationships rather than feeling powerless and stifled by whatever the partner is not doing for them. This is also a great fit with Bowen theory in its focus on differentiation or maturity of self and its aspiration for connectedness as the source of creative change rather than some quid pro quo of couple communication.
You know when you give your love away, it opens your